They want me to put the hammer down. Light it up, it's going down. Way too low-key, no, I can't treat you like my homie, you don't know me. I'm from the north, I don't get cold feet, I'm the one. Like golden sun, the one and only flowing snowy.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again. My name is Jasmine. If you don't know me, I specialize in realistic colored pencil drawings of people. Sometimes I work in black and white. Today we're going to be talking about some of the things that I did on my last graphite drawings to achieve a realistic appearance. For this, I'm going to be using my drawing of abstract that I did a couple of months ago. We're going to just go over some tips that can help you achieve a realistic look in your drawings. For this particular drawing, it's a very, very small drawing. I believe his face is no bigger than a small coin. I'll go over some of the ways that I got a realistic look, even though I was working in a very small area. For this piece that we're going to be talking about today that I worked on, I used Caran D'Ache Graf Wood. If you are not familiar with that, they are magical graphite pencils. They're unlike any other graphite pencils I've used in the past. I've used a few brands, and the reason I like Caran D'Ache is because the lead is very smooth, they're easy to sharpen, the pigmentation is very rich with those. The lead is very consistent as far as not having any weird like pieces of things in it, and it doesn't break easily. I really like using those for sketching out pieces as well as doing full portraits, so that's been a very, very useful supply to have. This portrait that we're going to be talking about today is of a guy named Abstract. He's a super cool musician. If you saw the time lapse of this piece, then that's what his music sounds like. He's a pretty cool dude. I'm going to try and make my tutorials a little bit shorter because my YouTube analytics tell me that you guys don't really like long videos, so I will be working on that. Leave the link in the description so you can see the original time lapse of this piece. Some of the clips in this video that we're going to be doing today, some of them are a little bit sped up just for the sake of time. Like I said, I'm trying to shorten the videos a little bit, so some of them are sped up just a little tiny bit, and then there's other clips that are real time where you can see me drawing without the time lapse, so you can get a sense of what I'm actually doing. There is definitely a method of adding detail to a small portrait. You just have to be mindful of things like sharpening your pencils frequently and not doing too much heavy shading and too much heavy detail work. Less is more when it comes to very, very small portraits. I really like to keep the pencil sharp for that. I don't always constantly sharpen my pencils for every drawing that I do. It's just not something that I do. Sometimes I like dull pencils depending on the look that I'm trying to achieve, but for this portrait I believe I sharpen them quite frequently. I also use blending sticks. If you haven't seen my last video, you can take a look at that after this. I use some pretty basic supplies, so you might recognize some of those in this one. For Luke's face, I colored like the upper 2/3 of his face. As you can see, it is quite dark because it's shadowed by his hat. I wanted to kind of lock that in first and set that as my value scale kind of thing, so I can use that and see whatever I'm coloring outside of that, if that's going to be like lighter or darker compared to this area. This is actually the darkest area besides the hat. That helped me to just set the values for the other things that are in the portrait. The background, the sweatshirt, the hands, the buildings. To set his face back in space, I believed I used a 5B graphite, and I think there was an F graphite, and I also might have used the 3H pencil to add in tiny details on his skin. So I didn't use a whole lot of different pencils for this area. The tortillas, you may have seen those, are just like rolled up pieces of paper. Those came in very, very handy for this type of blending work. I would definitely suggest investing in those. They're extremely cheap, but they are so useful to have. I color very lightly for portraits this small. Try to keep in mind that you need to be light-handed when you're coloring this type of work, just so it doesn't look muddy, and you might need to go back and erase. This is especially important if you're working in an area that has skin like the face. You don't want to make it look like you're aggressively coloring, or maybe you do. I don't know your life. For the rest of the face, the lighter parts of the face where the sun hits, I used 2H and 3H graphite, and again the blending sticks. Those really came in handy to get an overall even appearance in his skin, and to make it more look like skin, I would go back in with a Tombow mono eraser and erase tiny highlights in the skin to kind of give it some more depth. Same goes for the eyebrows. When you're drawing a very, very tiny portrait, you really don't have to do a lot of eyebrow details, especially if his hat is kind of covering part of it. You don't have to be super precise with that. Keep in mind that you don't want to use something extremely dark to color it. You might want to use something in the 4B to 5B graphite range. That would be fine, and just don't color too heavily again. Keep in mind to compare those kinds of values when you're working. I would just pay close attention to that. I also use a battery eraser. You can probably see that in this video here. I use a battery eraser that has two ends on it. It has a regular size eraser tip, and it has a very small one. So I use the small one, and then I cut the eraser into a point so that I can erase teeny tiny little dots. I did that for the nose, and I went back and colored over it with just a little bit of a lighter color pencil so that the nose wasn't completely darkened like it was when I first colored the shadow on the face. For the nose, now noses are noses are very important when it comes to setting the face back in space. You will need to color the nostrils fairly dark, so just be very, very careful, be very precise, work very slowly when you are coloring that area. You can only see the top of them usually if you're looking straight on at somebody's face, but it is important that they are dark so that the nose looks like it's pointing out from the face. And also adding in those shadows underneath the nose are very important. It's very, very easy to make it look muddy and to make it look flat, so you don't want that. So like you can see the sun shining on his face, so under the nose you want to put some shadow. For this you can see the shadow is a little bit offset because the sun is a little bit at an angle on his face. That I noticed that. And then you also want to color this part of the nose right here, make it darker, but don't make it too dark because it's not a super shadowed area, but it is a little bit dark. It's lighter than the shadow that's under the nose. For the beard, I colored a dark patch with 8B graphite. Then I used a sharp pencil to go back and add the finer hairs right above where the beard line is. Plus I used the X-Acto knife. I didn't talk about that in my last video, but you may see it frequently in my time-lapse videos. I use an X-Acto knife for all kinds of details. That's a very, very handy thing to have. With an X-Acto knife, what you do is you just kind of etch away at the beard a little bit to add some highlights. Again, that gives it depth. You might want to think about investing in that as well if you're wanting to do something very, very detailed. It's pretty much for any hair. An X-Acto knife is very useful for adding in those really, really fine details. You may not think that it's important, but once you step back and look at the details you've added with the knife, it definitely gives it a different feel. It actually shows that the light shining on the hair and that there's different strands of hair. It definitely gives the hair depth, and it shows that there's just more like density to the hair as well. I try to explain this process to people, but I think I just end up confusing them. It's actually a lot simpler than what I'm trying to explain. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I hope it really helps you guys. Let me know in the comments if you do any of these techniques, or if this helped you at all. If you want me to make another one like this for another part of this drawing or another drawing I've done, let me know. Please subscribe if you want to. It's a free way to support this channel. I try to plan my uploads ahead of time, so this channel is there's usually something to watch here. If there's not anything new to watch here, there's usually something to watch on my second channel, Jasmine Baker 2, if you want to check that out. It's mostly story times. I do want to start doing some videos on like reality TV shows that I watch. I'm not hugely into reality TV. I watch like maybe like 3 reality TV shows. I don't know why I watch them, but maybe it's so I can make fun of them. I don't know. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any other tutorial ideas, let me know. If there's something else about realism that you have any questions about, I would be happy to answer it in a video in great detail. I am still working on commissions right now. I'm about halfway through them. I should be done by January. I will be available for commissions again in January. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.